So good. But hey, I'm really excited this morning to welcome up Adrian Hatwell.
Yeah, go Adrian.
Come on up, Adrian. So good. Adrian is bringing the word this morning. Grab a seat, church. Awesome.
Good morning, church. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Adrian Hatwell. We've been coming to C3 now for the last 8 years. Me and my wife, we've just recently taken over the kids ministry. Although I think my wife does most of the work, I'm just her assistant really, but I'm just honoured to be up here to be able to preach for you. This is my first time I've got to preach as the proper preach, so thank you very much, Pastor Brad, for allowing me to do that. And look, just a round of applause for our pastors, Pastors Brad and Jacqui. So, anyway, earlier this year, I went to the Philippines on a mission trip with one of our former church members. She's now in Newman, Melbourne. She invited us over to the Philippines, said, come over, come visit some communities and we'll hand out some rice and teach them about the word and all that. So we're like, yep, great, we'll be in on that. As Melba does, she likes to throw you in the deep end. So she says, hey, preach to this community. So I had pretty much, I think about 24, 48 hours, maybe give or take, to actually write up a preach and to deliver to this community. So I did it anyway. I thought it wasn't too bad. Then a few days later, she's like, do it again to this other community. I was like, all right, this time, much better preach. And it was such a, I felt, powerful message that I've gone, hey, I want to actually deliver this message to you guys. So anyway, a month ago, driving to Karratha, as I spend time with God, I put on some praise music, and that's kind of my time. As Pastor Brad has also said, he likes to do that as well. This is my time to actually have that talk with God, and he said to me, I've got another preach for you. I was like, what, God? I've got this great preach. It's good. It's been practiced. He's like, no. And he said to me, heads or tails. So I'd like to introduce the title of my preach today, Heads or Tails. Firstly, we're just going to flip a coin. So I want everyone to pick either heads or tails, all right? Just don't have to, just pick one. We're going to flip the coin. Whoop. That was a bad flip. All right, hands up who had heads. Hands up who just picked heads because everyone else was. All right, heads. All right. So anyway, back to the story. I was heads or tails? What's this message about? I don't know. I was like, God, what is heads or tails? Seriously, it didn't make sense to me. And God said, it's about serving two masters. So let's open up the Bible, Matthew 6:24. It says, no one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate one or love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Such a powerful message. So we thought, what other messages are there? Let's look at Luke 16:13. Luke 16:13 says, no one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate one or love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. No one can serve both God and money. This verse is repeated twice in the Bible. If you actually read both those verses, they're two completely different stories, two parables of Jesus' teaching. But it was important enough that he had to put it in the Bible twice. So, obviously there's a message here that Jesus really wanted to teach us that serving two masters is not good. So anyway, back to my story. I said, well, God, if I'm going to do a preach on serving two masters, I need a story. I need something juicy. I need something with a bit of guts to, get their attention to be able to communicate this message for you. And he says, tell your story. I was like, what? God, I don't have a story. I don't have a story. I'm good with my money. I'm tithing. I'm generous. I don't understand. He says, tell your story. And right then, I feel like this truth bomb was just thrown in the car, and it was powerful. So I'm going to tell you my story. A couple of years ago, I was running my business. Now, I was running a communications business. We had an office in Wedgfield. I had 6 technicians working for me. We had admin staff, as well as my wife running an events business. I was helping her out on the weekends and doing all this. And he pointed out, this business was my second master. This business was consuming me. It was consuming my thoughts. It was consuming me. I was worried, how am I going to get the work done? How am I going to get all this work done that we've got in? Then the next week, I'm wondering, how am I going to get more work done? I've got to keep my employees busy. I'm worried about how am I going to make payroll this week, to the next week going, how am I going to pay the rent, to the week after, oh no, my plans just went into chaos because 2 of my techs called in sick. How am I going to get this work done? It was ever consuming. The thoughts that my time was being consumed by my business. It wasn't actually being putting God first. I was still being a good Christian. I was still coming to church. We were running 2 small groups at the time. We were volunteering, we were tithing. I was being a good Christian, but my business was taking up so much of my thoughts and my time that it was my master. So we look at that and go, so it actually isn't always just about money that is taking up our time. Sometimes we look at it and it's actually our careers, our ambitions, trying to climb the corporate ladder that is taking up all of our time. It might even be relationships, families, friends, a toxic relationship that you have that is taking up your time. Even romantic partners sometimes are ever consuming and putting our priorities wrong. It might be addictions, pleasures, having that Facebook on every time it bings, having to check your phone to know who was calling you. Sometimes social approval. How many likes are you getting on Facebook? How many friends do you have? Who's watching all your YouTube videos? How many views have you got? It's not always just about money. It's about something else that is taking the priority away from God. So anyway, back to my conversation with God. He says to me, I gave you a way out. He actually, a year ago, just over a year ago, me and my wife decided that our lease was up in our commercial premises and it was just too chaotic. We had to get rid of our staff and we had to slow down the communication side of the business because the event side of the business was actually getting busier and busier. So we're like, all right, we made the decision. We're going to slow down that comm side of it, close that down, and get rid of our staff. Man, the amount of stress the day that I had no staff and it was just me and my wife was just amazing how much pressure had been lifted off me. So anyway, God said to me, so now I've given you a way out. How's your relationship with your wife? I was like, to be honest, my relationship with my wife is probably the best in the last 12 months than the last few years before that. We fight a lot less about work, even though we do spend a lot more time together now working, but we don't seem to argue as much about, especially me, having to go away, having to being consumed by all these thoughts about my business. And then he said to me, how's your relationship with your kids? I was like, well, they've actually been great. I think I've dropped my kids off more time in the last 12 months than I have ever in their whole schooling career. I've actually made more time to spend with my kids, to be able to be part of their after-school activities. I'm actually even helping teaching their acting after-school activity with Hatch. And then he said, how's your relationship with God? And to be honest, in the last 12 months, my relationship with God has grown so much. It has grown so much that he's given me the time to actually be able to spend with him. I remember a few years ago, as Empower comes up, and I always say to my wife, why isn't there a men's conference? And my wife always says, because none of your men would get off your ass and do it. So, happily enough, this year, I had to, especially working in events, had to go and get off my ass. And this November, the 3rd and 4th, we're going to have our first men's conference. Even got this cool shirt designed for it. So my time that I've been able to spend with God has increased. By taking the way out, I've been given back my priority list. I've been able to put God first, and it's been given me the time to spend with not only God, but all the relationships that are important to me in my life. So what is your masters? What is consuming your time? At the end of Joshua's life, the Israelites were all seeking other gods and moving away from God. And we're going to look at Joshua verse 24:15. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourself this day whom you will serve. Whether it's God of your ancestors served beyond the Ephrathites or the gods of the Amorites whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, I will serve the Lord. Who's going to make the decision that they're going to serve the Lord? That them and their household are going to serve the Lord? It's a decision that you have to take, and it's a way that you have to actually build and identify the other masters in your life. Only then can you see where your priorities are laying. Once you've identified that God is not first, you need to put him up there. He's going to provide you a way out. He's going to help you along the way, but you need to put him first. Only then can you truly serve no more than two masters. So, when I flip the coin, I'm sure there's someone who probably didn't make a decision. You know, isn't it amazing how sometimes we're like, nah, we're not going to pick a side. You know, we're not going to pick heads or tails. We're not going to play this silly game. But you have to pick. You know, you have to prioritise what you're going to pick. That is the only way we can truly get out of this rat race and actually put God first and make our priorities first. So, no, this was a very, very powerful message that God threw at me a month ago. And afterwards, I just said to Pastor Brad, you know, hey, I've got this message. I really want to give this to you guys because it was just the truth bomb that I didn't realise. It'd taken me a few years past. I've been out of this situation for him to actually throw it into my face and go, hey, you were doing this. You were serving two masters. And it's not always the things that we think are two masters. We talk a lot about money, we talk a lot about other gods, but it's other things that are taking away our priorities in our life. What is taking away your priorities? What is taking away your connection with God? Look, thank you very much for this message. We're going to go into a prayer. Look, I'll just ask if you can, everyone can stand, and band if you want to jump up. Guys, if you've never acknowledged God as your one master, as your person who you need to go to, maybe you've walked away from God, maybe you've strayed away from him and you haven't had the priority that you need to give him. We're going to say a prayer in a minute, and I want everyone to repeat after me. Dear Lord Jesus, I am a sinner, and I ask for your forgiveness. I believe you died for my sins and rose from the dead. I turn from my sins and invite you to come into my heart and my life. I want to trust you and follow you as my Lord and Saviour. Guys, if you've said this for the first time, I just want you to tell someone, come tell our pastors, come tell myself, come tell the info desk. We want to help you through the journey of becoming a Christian and putting God first in your life. Sorry, and we'll give a round of applause for anyone who's prayed that for the first time.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing from our channel.
And share with a friend because you never know who you're going to bless.
You can also catch us live every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Australian Western Standard Time. We'd love to see you there.